All right, hello and welcome everybody to the program and technical update for the proposed new commercial program. For those that don't know me, my name is Kevin Lauder and I'm a program manager here at NFRC. I have over 20 years in the fenestration industry, with 18 of those years with commercial fenestration involvement. Before we begin, we would like to do a quick poll to better understand who we have in our audience today. So we're going to bring open here a quick poll, if you'd be so kind to fill this out for us. All right, we'll just give this here another minute or quick couple seconds and we'll close this down. All right, thank you. We're going to just share a quick results here just so we can see it. All right. All right, so on today's agenda, I'll be providing the latest information regarding the commercial program and the two new proposed pathways to obtain product ratings for fenestration installed in commercial buildings, which in many cases are a requirement for code compliance. Please note that this program is still under task group review, and some aspects described today may change upon final implementation of the program. The first path option I'll be discussing is the project upload path, which is for product applications associated with custom one-off projects. And the second path option I will be discussing is the product directory path, which is for products being used repeatedly on many projects. This product directory path will focus on the new technical procedure called the commercial trendline approach, which will be the primary topic today and later in this presentation. A brief review of the technical procedure will be shown to help understand the ease, the flexibility, and the streamlined approach for licensed users to obtain product ratings. Now let's begin by laying out some of the groundwork for the paths to certification. So please note that this commercial program is a new program and developed based on the NFRC board's direction, and should not be confused with the current NFRC site-built or CMA rating procedures. Under the new commercial program, it should be clear that we are rating the products which may be installed into commercial building and are not providing the building performance or auditing the building for what is installed. Again, this is a product certification program. As presented in the agenda, there are two paths to certification, and under these two paths, both have a requirement for an NFRC LEAF certified simulator, which ensures integrity of the program, since this is the highest ranking level of NFRC certified simulator, and typically a person that is highly experienced in NFRC product rating procedures. Under the commercial program, project certificates will be utilized and not product temporary labels. Now that the basics have been reviewed, let's begin the discussion with details surrounding the project upload path. The project upload path is a two-step process-oriented path and geared for custom one-off projects and shall be specific to one project. It is intended that the products in this path are not going to be reused over and over and will require a new project certificate for every project. Users of this path, in most cases, have already determined the product's specific glazing and configurations for the project and are looking for building performance for the products on the project. This two-step process streamlines obtaining product ratings as compared to past NFRC rating procedures, and is expected to allow for more custom projects to obtain project certificates, whereas they may not have in the past. As stated earlier in this path, only NFRC LEAF certified simulators may perform simulations and submit data to generate a project certificate. The NFRC LEAF certified simulator performs the simulations on representative products confirmed by the certificate requester, and may produce design certificates and final project certificate as required for the project. The LEAF certified simulator is not required to work for an NFRC accredited simulation laboratory. This path follows traditional simulation methods for product rating, such as using NFRC approved software, like as today with the LBNL window and therm, to calculate the product ratings and applying area weighting techniques as appropriate for the project. NFRC standard configurations, the standard size configurations, do not apply in this path, as this analysis may incorporate mold and composite assemblies in the project certificate. So think a facade-focused type analysis. Even though this is geared for custom size and configuration projects, this path does not allow a free-for-all environment, and not all building components or configurations can be analyzed in this path. This includes corner conditions and regions of three-dimensional heat flow, as an example, parapet condition at the top of the building. The rules in the NFRC technical documents and exception allowances in NFRC 715 shall apply, and the LEAF certified simulator is attesting that they have used and applied these processes in their analysis. When comparing this new program to our current certification commercial program, one of the major benefits of this is no physical validation testing is required in this path, since analysis is solely for one project. And in many cases, the custom product is not easily manufacturable for testing purposes. The IA is tasked to audit project certificates at a frequency schedule outlined in the NFRC 715, which will be the new governing commercial program document and is still under task group review. Now that the details of the project upload path have been discussed, I would like to illustrate some examples of custom one-off projects that this path could apply, and hopefully this will help give you a visualization of the type of projects we're talking about. So these one-off projects may use stock products, but in customized configurations, or totally custom products to meet the aesthetic design for the project. Some examples here could include stadiums, custom high-rise, educational institutions, museums, and again, this could apply to many, many more scenarios. Now that the project upload path has been discussed, we can now focus on the product directory path and the new technical procedure called the commercial trendline approach. We also call that the CTA method. The product directory path is geared for products that will be used over and over on many projects. Users of this path, in most cases, are either using the same framing but different glazing based off geographical location and project specification requirements, or may not know the framing they're using, but using this path for design purposes and product selection determination. This path involves an initial three-step traditional process and begins with simulation by a LEAF certified simulator, but in this case from an NFRC accredited laboratory, which applies the commercial trendline approach. Only NFRC LEAF certified simulators with an accredited simulation lab may perform the commercial trendline approach calculations to develop product trend lines and perform the simulations for the product directory path. The NFRC LEAF certified simulator models the products at standard NFRC sizes and configurations based on the information provided by the manufacturer. In this path, mold and composite assemblies may not be used and are rated as different product types as individual products within the project. The NFRC standard size and configuration is mandatory rating for product comparison purposes. However, this path does provide allowance for alternate project sizing as optional. The NFRC accredited testing laboratory shall be responsible for performing the physical validation testing in accordance with NFRC 102 for all the product lines added to the directory. The IA is tasked to audit the laboratory commercial trend lines and the validations for product lines, and to perform manufacturer audits in accordance with the NFRC 715. By developing the product trend lines and completing the IA audits in advance, this streamlines the process for the licensed user to obtain product ratings and a project certificate when a product is being used multiple times for multiple projects. Once the product trend lines have been established and validated, the approved or licensed user can assign a multitude of glazing configurations, glass and spacer to a product line and be able to generate total product ratings without further computer simulation. And this is the biggest benefit to the commercial trendline approach method. The only limitation to this path is how the trendline endpoints are defined by the manufacturer. As an example, if the manufacturer establishes the product trend lines and the end user wants to use an option outside the endpoints, the total product ratings will not be available for that configuration unless a new trend line is generated that would incorporate that option. This will be reviewed in detail later in this presentation when we do an example on the commercial trendline approach. So products in this path are reused over and over and include but not limited to projects like restaurants, retail stores, hotels, office, governmental and educational, high-rise, and again in instances where product comparison is needed to help the building team determine what products to use. This path can also be used for custom builds since additional optional sizing is available in this path, but keep in mind that only standard NFRC product configurations apply. Again, no mold products. So after discussing these two paths, I'm sure there may be some immediate questions that you have in your mind. To help you out and alleviate any of those immediate concerns, I would now like to take a moment to address some of these possibly questions you may have through FAQ page. Again, there'll be some time at the end of this presentation for further questions. So one of the biggest items here is, so what is happening to the site-built and CMA programs? Under the board's direction, the development of the new commercial program was necessary to better satisfy the needs of the industry, commercial stakeholders, and participants in the program and their members. The new commercial process can provide quicker product ratings and project certificates through two path options and allows more flexibility for users of the program to meet their project needs. Therefore, during the implementation phase of the new commercial program, we will monitor both site-built and CMA programs and ultimately determine sunset dates for these programs. This consolidation will also help to eliminate confusion with multiple rating processes. So now you're probably asking, when will the new commercial program be implemented? Currently, the technical and program documents are being refined through NFRC commercial task groups. It is projected that a second ballot for the technical procedures will be submitted and voted upon during the NFRC spring meeting, which will be held on March 29th through 31st. The program document is also being refined for the second ballot and will either be submitted for spring ballot or will be expected to follow later this year, depending on task group progress. The implementation requirements also need to be addressed, such as a platform for certificate generation. Question was, can you combine paths on one project? In general, no. The user of the commercial program shall choose either path option and generate the project certificate for that specific path. Another question was, you may be asking, can a project certificate be reused when all my products and glazing are identical on multiple projects? And again, the answer is no on this one. Regardless of the certification path chosen, every project will require a unique project certificate that indicates the specific project information. Every project will have a unique address, contact information, etc. How do you decide one path over the other? So this will depend on the requirements of the building specification and the type of build for the project. In cases when the project calls for energy performance ratings on product-specific one-off configuration, generally the project upload path would be used. This path will require computer simulation by the NFRC LEAF certified simulator to be performed for each project certificate. Now for the identical builds and construction scenarios where generally only the glazing configurations may be changing due to the geographical locations, the product directory path using the commercial trendline approach would be used. In this path, the simulations and trend lines are already completed and validated, and the licensed user will only need to provide glass and spacer inputs to generate total product ratings for the project certificate. And now you may be thinking, so who is the licensed user, which seems to have an important role when using the product directory path? Again, the product directory path is where we're doing projects repeatedly, or products that are being used repeatedly. So the licensed user is authorized to generate total product ratings in the product directory path. To achieve the status of a licensed user, this individual would be expected to attend an NFRC hosted training webinar to fully understand the requirements for the inputs needed and how to create or request a project certificate. This training has yet to be developed, but will need to address how to prepare and submit center of glass and spacer inputs for each product line, how to select the approved product line to use in their project, defining and submitting optional alternative product sizing as needed, understanding the general information requirements for the project certificate generation, and how to provide and maintain documentation for inputs used for the project. Now that we hopefully have a better understanding of the two paths, and hopefully some of your questions, your immediate questions, may have been addressed. Like I said, I know there may be additional questions, and we can discuss those later. But let's dive further into the specifics of the commercial trendline approach. Remember, this is the product directory path and products that are going to be used over and over again. So what is this commercial trendline approach and how can it be used? Generally, the commercial trendline approach is a trendline procedure used for products to be installed in commercial fenestration building, commercial building, and manufacturers utilizing multiple glazing configurations. Using this approach significantly simplifies and speeds the process for a licensed user to obtain a project certificate. All right, now let's get into some of the specifics for the commercial trendline approach. For each product line, trend lines will be generated or created based on the following trendline categorizations. The first requirement needed to be understood is when a new trend line is required. So item number 1 here, changes to the nominal IGU width or the main frame change to accommodate the IGU will require a separate or new trend line. It should be noted that the nominal IGU width may be comprised of characteristic options containing different glass and gap thickness. Interior room surface low E glass can be within the same trend line. However, please note this cannot be used for determination of the condensation index rating. Spacer assemblies will require separate trend lines. However, when the product matrix utilizes multiple options, only 2 are required for the commercial trendline approach, as long as the lowest and highest conductance are used. By using the highest and lowest conductance spacers in the product matrix, any spacer option in between can be accounted for by interpolation, and this will be made clear later when we do an example. The number of glazing layers, dual glaze versus triple glaze options will require separate trend lines. Additionally, products with secondary sash or panel, energy panel, or storm panel fall into separate trend lines. Grids, true divided lights are broken out into separate trend lines from the non-grid options. Dynamic glazed products are broken out into separate trend lines from standard glazing options. And finally, any product change which has not been initially grouped will require a separate trend line. So not typical on commercial fenestration, but an example could be reinforcement or foam filling product options will require separate trend lines if not priorly grouped. Now that we know what criteria results in how many trend lines are developed, what exactly does a trend line look like and how is it developed? The trend lines are required to be developed by plotting 3 points and determining a slope-intercept formula. The 3 points simulated are the product line's highest, mid, and lowest U-factor glazing options in the product matrix, and used to obtain total product results based on the categorization we just discussed on this prior slide. So think clear glass as an example for the high point. A low E gas-filled option may be your best option for the low point, and a mid option would need to be somewhere in the middle of that in the product matrix. The respective total product ratings versus the product option center of glass are plotted to generate the trend line. You can see that a linear relationship is obtained and dramatically simplifies not simulating all glazing configurations, as they all now fall within the product line trend line. Product line trend lines will be generated for U-factor, solar heat gain, visible light transmittance, and condensation index, and all use the same center of glass options to develop points. So in this plot here, your high, mid, and low options, those will transfer over through from U-factor, solar heat gain, VT, and CI. Again, that's the center of glass option. So the U-factor, center of glass U-factor, center of glass solar heat gain, all those options will be identical glazing options to generate those trend lines. Now that I know the characteristics of a trend line, and what a trendline is, let's apply the commercial trendline approach. So what makes the commercial trendline approach unique, and why should you care? Let's first by starting and establishing the trend lines and using the following example. Say the manufacturer has a glass matrix of 10 glass options, all at 1-inch nominal IGU, and 3 spacer options. Let's just say they have an aluminum, a steel, and a non-metallic. So in this product matrix, there are 30 total product options. In traditional methods, all 30 of those options would have to be analyzed. That's not the case when we work with the commercial trendline approach, and we'll discuss this here further. The LEAF certified simulator with a NFRC accredited simulation lab will determine the center of glass points, the endpoints, and the midpoints in the product matrix, and only use the highest conductance spacer, which in this case is designated by the W, so think of the aluminum spacer, and the lowest conductance spacer, which is the best option, designated by a B, and that would be the non-metallic spacer option, resulting in generating 6 points and plotting 2 trend lines. So we're got 2 trend lines now, trend line W and a trend line B. So we picked our center of glass options for high, mid, and low, and we picked our best spacer option, and we picked our worst spacer option and plotted these 2 trend lines. An extrapolation is performed for the center of glass to allow for glass options outside of the product matrix to be rated and without performing additional trendline work. This extrapolation is valid because the trend lines are required to be simulated with the best and worst center of glass matrix options, and requiring at a minimum a clear glass option and the glass option with the best low E in the matrix. We now may be able to obtain the U-factor results for all 10 glass options and all 3 spacers. But wait, we only have 2 trend lines with 2 spacers. So how do we handle that third spacer? How do we handle that steel spacer? Again, that's the benefit of the commercial trendline approach, since the rating can be interpolated for any spacer glass combination within and or between the developed trendline points. The licensed user can now specify the center of glass and spacer, and via the user interface yet to be determined, can calculate U-factor and generate the project certificate. So let me reiterate what I'm presenting here. Once the trend lines are developed, and may be specific to every manufacturer, the licensed user will input only center of glass and spacer information, and this results in direct output for U-factor, and in the next slides we'll show solar gain and VT. Please note that some manufacturers may not offer multiple spacers and may only have one in their matrix. In this case, 2 trend lines would not be required to be developed, as both trend lines would be equivalent. There is still the benefit to developing the trend lines, since any glazing option that falls within the trend line categorization can be used to calculate total product results. The commercial trendline approach can be customizable to meet manufacturers' needs, but can limit the licensed user entries to obtain a project certificate. As I stated earlier, we are not determined. It has not been determined the user interface to generate the ratings or the project certificate, but this could be via our certified products directory, a new software tool, or even an Excel benchmark type spreadsheet. It is important to note for our manufacturers that the trendline data will all be confidential and not visible to the end user, regardless of the interface selected to be used. Let's get into the solar gain. So for the solar gain, this is a similar process as the U-factor we just discussed, and using the same center of glass U-factor options to develop the trend lines. The only difference now is the center of glass range, since we're working with solar gain, which is based off using 0 and 1 center of glass value. From this plot, it may appear that there's only one trend line plotted. However, let me assure you that there are 2, and you can see this by reviewing the slope-intercept equations. The spacer has slight influence on the total product solar heat gain, and therefore slightly different slope-intercept equations between spacers. Now for the visible transmittance. For the VT, it is again a similar process as the U-factor, and using the same center of glass U-factor options to develop the trend lines. The only difference is the center of glass range, since we are working with VT, and again, this uses a 0 to 1 for the center of glass values. Spacer has no influence on the VT, and therefore trend lines will show equal slope-intercept equations, and this is only as long as the spacer does not alter the product sightline. Okay, now let's get into the condensation index trend lines and how we handle those. The condensation index will be calculated using the newly ANSI NFRC 500 and use center of glass U-factor glazing options for the high, mid, and low points. Again, same ones that we used for the U-factor, soybean, and VT. The commercial technical task group is currently working on the specific criteria for the condensation index, but as an option, this could be to generate a CI range, and that would be based off using the best and worst case spacer when multiple spacers are used in the manufacturer's product matrix. Preliminary research has indicated that the condensation index cannot be interpolated like the U-factor, solarican, and VT, and this is primarily due to the total product condensation index being determined by 3 lines, and it's determined based off of the condensation index for the frame, condensation index of the edge of glass, and the condensation index for the center of glass. And in some cases, they can flip-flop and change the total condensation index. So in this example, we have 2 trend lines, but 2 different spacers. Let's say we have our aluminum and non-metallic spacer. So since we can't use the interpolation to determine the condensation index for other spacers, condensation index rating will be displayed as a range based on the 2 spacers selected and generated for these trend lines. So as a quick example, say you have a glazing option with a center of glass of just say 3.4 watts per meter Kelvin, and that could be equivalent to a clear IGU, could have a range, say 56 to 60 for all spacers in that product line. Again, that range is based off the aluminum spacer and the non-metallic spacer. And as another example, you could have a glazing option with a center of glass of 2.5 watts per meter Kelvin. Again, that could be equivalent to a low E type IGU. Could have a range 59 to 62 for all spacers in that product line for that particular glazing option. So you can see that this range will cover any spacer in between that is listed in the product line matrix for each glass option, but will not provide the specific rating for those spacer options in between because those were not calculated. We were only calculated the endpoints. If you're interested in having the specific CI value for a specific spacer option in between the range, separate trend lines will need to be generated. Okay, now that the laboratory has performed all the trend line and validation work, both the simulation and physical testing, these must now be audited by the IA and approved prior to the licensed user using the product line to generate a project certificate. Once the IA has approved the product line, how do I get the total product ratings? So as indicated through the product directory path discussion earlier, the licensed user can provide 2 inputs for generating energy performance ratings for all individual product configurations. Again, the individual is required to go through the established licensed user training to be authorized to generate the project certificate. The licensed user is required to provide the center of glass U-factor, the center of glass information such as U-factor, solar heat gain, and VT, and the spacer effective conductivity information for each product option for the project. So the center of glass values can be obtained through approved software, again our traditional software we use today. The spacer selection will be discussed here in the next series of slides. The licensed user has 2 options for providing and specifying the spacer effective conductivity. Effective conductivity can be selected for default spacers, as indicated in this table, or the effective conductivity for the specific spacer simulation. Default spacers are genericized and can be used when the spacer manufacturer has not been confirmed. The spacer selection shall be made by determining the spacer composition and using the highest spacer K effective conductivity material in this table. When selecting the default spacer, the user must understand that they may be sacrificing performance, as these have been established as conservative values. So if you're concerned with performance, you may want to consider using a specific spacer, which will be discussed on the next slide. Specific spacers are used when the spacer product type is known and to obtain a more precise product rating. The spacer product is simulated by a LEAF certified simulator for the manufactured drawings to determine spacer U factor, which then the spacer effective conductivity can be calculated. Every spacer product type requires simulation to determine the effective conductivity. So very simply, product trend lines plus center of glass and spacer inputs will result in total product results, and the project certificate may be generated and or issued. And now you're one step closer to getting your project up and going. All right, so I do want to thank you for your attendance in today's webinar, and I hope you can see the benefits of the new commercial program. There's still some work to be completed, so stay tuned for some future rollout. Now I'd like to open it up for some questions that we received through the any questions that we received through the question box. Please note that we may not be able to address all the questions due to time or items that may be refined during the implementation phase. For questions that do not get addressed, however, we will have a log of them and we will try to reach out individually. All right, so I'm gonna.
Okay. Oh, Kevin, are you gonna do okay, or do you want me to read the questions for you?
Yeah, go ahead. If you could read them, please.
Okay, so first one is, what is a good way to think of the condensation index? Like, what is that number really telling us?
So the condensation index has been redefined. We used to have the condensation resistance, the CR rating. The CI rating now is more, you're pulling temperatures directly from the profile, so it's a more realistic indication of condensation potential. But again, like I said, that was a new procedure that we recently got approved, and we'll be working through some training here in the near future for that particular rating.
Okay, and the next one is, where does CMAS come into play with this new program?
Yeah, so that was kind of discussed earlier. So again, this is a brand new program, not to be confused with CMA, not to be confused with the site build program. And in the FAQ section, it's projected that CMA will eventually be sunset and will no longer be active. But that will not happen until we get this new program up and running.
Okay. And the next question is, a draft of NFRC 715 available for review?
There is a version of 715 available. Again, it's not a completed document, but if you're interested in the 715, we post that to the task group webpage. We have a NFRC 715 PCP review task group page. In order to access those documents, you do have to be a member of the task group. So you'll need to join that task group, and then you'll be able to have access to that document. And every task group call we typically do an updated version of it, so that you'll see there's multiple series of versions posted to the web page.
Okay, and the next question is, why will validation testing be required for the product directory path but not the project upload path? With the NFRC 700 has 30 years of data demonstrating that when a product matches the simulations, then it will validate.
Yeah, so generally our rating scheme has always been testing, simulation, physical testing, and the IA review. So we're maintaining that throughout the product path, keeping our current rating scheme. Like I said, with the project, that's where it deviates a little bit, because those are customized projects, and that validation, creating those samples could be problematic. and getting that custom configuration, getting those into the test chamber potentially could be problematic. But yeah, no, we're maintaining the we call it our three-leg stool, basically. Again, we have simulation testing and our IA reviews.
Okay. I just want next question as just want to clarify that only a certified test lab can provide a project certificate. Is that correct?
For project, currently as we have it, it's open to any LEAF certified simulator. So you do not have to be associated with a lab as it's currently proposed. Like I said, that potentially could change when the final implementation, but where we stand right today, the project path is just requiring a LEAF certified simulator. The product, on the other hand, requires the simulation laboratory.
Okay, so do about 4 more questions and then we'll make sure we answer them all online, and we'll send that link out. But the next one is a trendline approach, basically a more refined approach to the AMA 507.
I would say the commercial trendline approach is more based off our residential LEAF program. So there's some similarities between the commercial CTA approach and the LEAF methodology. There are some distinct differences on how you establish the trend lines. There is some possible relations to the 507 procedure, but we're really drilling down precise values. We're not dealing with default glazings. We're using actual product performance to generate the product results.
Okay, and how long will existing CMA and traditional site-built certifications continue to be usable?
Yeah, right now, like I said, those programs, they're going to be live until we roll this program that just gets fully implemented, and we're going to monitor those closely to see, usage of those programs and how those are working in industry. But based off of what we're seeing now is once this program gets rolled out, we're going to try to determine the sunset dates on that. And honestly, there's not a good deadline that I can provide at this point, just because, like I said, we have to go through balloting of these new documents, get membership approval on them, so that time frame there can dictate how long it takes to get this program rolled out.
Okay, with the new trend lining approach, will manufacturers no longer have to pay for having components in any database?
That's correct. So yeah, it's going to be based off product line, and depending on how the manufacturer puts the products into the database, that could dramatically simplify things. But yeah, there's no components anymore. It's based off the product.
Okay, so sorry, Kevin, I'll do 2 more and then the next one is, does that mean the cloud-based CMAS that was shown at the fall meeting is going away, even though it has not been released?
Again, like I said, it's all going to come down to timing on when the new program gets rolled out. We're probably looking, 1 to 2 years at least, or more potentially. Like I said, I don't have a clear defined timeline because there's a lot of factors involved with getting this program up and running and rolled out. But there's a good possibility that the CMAS tool will roll out prior to this being implemented. So that's not going away. That's still in progress. That's still moving forward. So if there's a question of is that going to be seen by the public? Yes, that will be seen by the public. So how long it will be to the public, that's an undetermined point right now.
Okay, and the last one is, other than using the new LEAF methodology, what are the differences between the current site-built program and the product directory path?
I think the product directory path is similar in the site build. the difference is now we're able to certify many more options potentially more easily without the additional simulation work. But they do have some similarities as far as the simulation, the testing, the IA review. So there are some crossovers there. There's just some usability and more. There's expected easier process with the new path.
Okay, so I know there are quite a few more questions coming in, and I think we probably could answer, like have a lot more questions, but we want to make sure we're able to answer all of them. So I know we will make sure that, and Kevin will answer each question. If you submitted a question that didn't get answered, we will send that answer to you directly as well. So I'll let you wrap it up, Kevin.
Okay. All right. Yep. No, just want to thank everybody for attending the call today. And like I said, just keep in mind that this is a moving target here. We're presenting information that we have to date. This is, we're trying to upgrade the usability of our commercial offering. And if you have any questions or if you're willing to participate, we also have, our task groups that you can help us out and participate. But again, I just want to thank you for your attendance today, and hopefully you see the benefit of moving in this new direction and for the new commercial program. So thank you.